Welcome to Memorial Cooking Innovation. I'm Manuel Marini, Executive Chef.
And I'm Tim Scallon, Registered Dietitian.
I kind of twisted things around, huh? I started it this time, didn't I?
You know, Chef Manny, that's what I like about
All right, all right.
Okay, so our gardens here in East Texas are just about finished, but the okra is still going. And our friend, Mr. Bill Jones, brought this by. So, Chef Manny, what do you want to do with okra today?
You know, I like okra, and I'm glad they brought you that so that we can do something with it. What we haven't done was a nice gumbo.
Now, when you say gumbo, the first thing I think of is high sodium, sausage,
Something
high
like
fat.
this, Tim?
Yep.
And I agree with you. But the flavor is there.
Well, the flavor's in this, but you know, if you can really see this, you can see pieces of fat in here. And while it tastes great, it also clogs up my blood vessels.
So we're going to substitute a little bit with some lean pork. How is that?
And see, that's beautiful.
You know, lean pork, a little bit of chicken, and some shrimp.
And you can tell by looking at these, you know, you can see less white in both of these than here. That means less fat. And that's a good visual characteristic on choosing meats. People ask me, well, what's a lean meat? Well, use your visual cues on that. Yeah. Perfect.
Yeah,
okay, so we can make a healthy gumbo
So
then.
we can make a healthy gumbo.
All right.
And, you know, gumbo is, yes, it is about the sausage and everything that goes in it. We're going to do pork, substitute the sausage with pork.
Loin.
And then we're going to do chicken and shrimp. How's that?
So you're going to put 3 meats together, and those are 3 different meats.
Yeah, and that's what makes a gumbo.
Yeah.
And we're going to add some brown rice.
All right. If you got gumbo with lean meat and you got it on brown rice, I'm in.
All right, deal. And then the thing about gumbo, it's about the flavors, all right? And because you brought the fresh okra, you couldn't ask for anything better than fresh okra.
Yeah.
Now, you can substitute it with some frozen okra that we buy at the store, and we use at times. But today we're lucky because Mr. Jones brought us some fresh okra, okay? So
well, and you know, normally we would do gumbo in a wintertime. You know, it's a wintertime. We think of it as a wintertime dish, but
it's year-round here because we're in South Texas. We're here. So we put gumbo in our menus, and it sells year-round. So, but the most important thing we're going to get started would be let's start on the roux. And the roux is pretty simple. Okay. You have a blonde roux and a dark roux. We're going to do a dark roux. The darker, the better, the more nuttier flavor you get with the flour. So
and that's more typical of like when you go to Louisiana, they do a real dark roux.
They do a real dark roux. So we're going to start off with a little oil, okay, Tim?
Okay.
We're going to add a little bit of oil, and this is something that you really want to do and pay attention to as you're doing it.
Okay, I'm paying attention.
All right, we're going to add a little bit of, I got some hot oil going, and we're going to add a little bit of flour, okay? It will bubble up, but the whole idea about this roux is that we got to keep stirring it.
Okay. Now you had your oil really hot.
I had the pan hot.
Yeah.
And then I added the oil, and that heated up real fast.
And this is also a time we want to point out. You know, you always see Chef Manny use olive oil in his recipes. You didn't use olive oil.
I didn't. I used a nice vegetable oil. All right. So you can use olive.
You could, but it's the wrong flavor.
It's the wrong flavor. Yeah. So just use some regular, you know. A nice peanut oil or a nice vegetable oil would be perfect. And we're just going to keep stirring it, okay?
Now, Chef Manny, the roux that you're making, this is actually different than the roux that my ancestors would have made. I don't know if you know or not, but I actually have relatives in Louisiana.
You do?
And the way they would start it is they would, in a hot skillet, they would just put dry flour and brown the flour. Have you ever seen them do that?
Yeah, and that's a nice way of doing it, yes. And then we also throw it in the oven. Not if you have a convection oven, because you'll have flour all over the place. A just nice oven, you put it in about a 300 to 275, and you kind of let it cook, take it out, shake it a little bit, and put it back. And that's what you really want to do. Now, I didn't catch it right then and there when we were talking, but the edges actually brown really fast. Flour will cook real fast, so you just got to always keep stirring it.
And you don't want to actually burn it. You just want to brown it.
And brown it. And one thing that I want to keep in mind is that pick the color that you want. The darker, the better. Just be careful because once it reaches that certain brown, dark brown color, it will start burning on you. And as we take it out of the pan, make sure you keep stirring it to cool it down a little bit because it will continue cooking, okay? So, but we want a little nice dark brown. How's that?
All right.
Like the top of that rice over there, okay?
Okay, so you literally want it to be this brown.
I would. I mean, and that's my choice. That's what I want on my gumbo.
Well, since you mentioned rice, I mean, we talked about brown rice, and this is, I'm not showing you this for the name brand, but just because this is a Texas Texmati rice. It's a basmati strain of rice, originally comes from India, is grown here in Texas, and it's an excellent brown rice, and it goes good with this gumbo.
It's perfect. Look at this.
That's beautiful. So this really does get brown. You're not just saying light brown. It gets dark.
It does
brown.
get dark, and it will get real dark.
Okay.
You know?
All right.
And this to me is perfect. And then I hope the cameras can see this color. It's a nice, almost like that top of there.
Almost a chocolate.
Yeah. Now we pull it to the side.
Okay.
Now one of the things that we are that comes with gumbo is rice, and we talked about brown rice, and you love brown rice, and it's good for you. I cooked a little bit of brown rice earlier today because I had a function going. I said, "Oh, let me do brown rice."
Okay.
But always remember, brown rice is 2 to 1.
Okay.
It's 1 cup of rice, 2 cups of water, just like white rice.
Yeah.
It does seem to take a little longer to cook.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's all. I would have started with the rice, but I did have some already cooked. Cook the rice, start on the
So if we were making this at home, we'd get our rice going.
Get a rice going right there on the side,
start
slow
your
cook,
gumbo.
and then start your roux and just sit there and stir. Once you get this done, the rest is a piece of cake.
Because your rice really is going to take 45 minutes, brown rice, whereas white rice will be 10 to 14
15
minutes.
to 20 minutes.
Yeah.
It all depends, though.
Yeah.
But remember what I told you. Once it's ready, you got to pull it out and just kind of cooling it down by just stirring it around, okay?
Okay.
So then we can put this to the side. And I am going to put it right over here.
You know, Chef Manny, you cooked this rice earlier. I love the nutty flavor, the aroma of this brown rice.
You know, I am so glad you chose to use brown rice. Traditionally, we use white rice. Other places use dirty rice, but I'm glad you chose brown.
All right. White rice is what is left of the rice grain after milling and polishing. First, the inedible chaff is removed, leaving a brown grain that we call brown rice. Then, the bran layer is polished off, leaving only the starchy white endosperm. This is what we call white rice. When the bran layer is polished off, most of the original vitamins and minerals are lost. Some are replaced by a process called enrichment, but as many as 11 nutrients are not replaced by enrichment. So brown rice has more vitamins and minerals than white rice. Brown rice lowers cholesterol and reduces our risk of heart disease. As a whole grain with 3 times the fiber of white rice, brown rice helps control appetite and therefore helps us maintain a healthy weight. Brown rice helps control blood sugar and can reduce our risk of diabetes. Because of the many health benefits of brown rice, this is the reason we chose to use it instead of the more traditional choice of white rice with our gumbo today.
Now we're ready for gumbo.
Okay.
All right. So, basic ingredients, some onions,
Okay.
a little bit of celery, and I like your step to it. You know, normally they add some peppers, red peppers, green peppers, but you decided let's do some poblano peppers.
Yep.
Which I have already
Well,
diced
you
up.
know, the reason I suggested that is because you've taught me to use poblano.
And
I
you know,
I didn't know poblano until you
It's
started
so
teaching us.
funny, yeah. People are actually getting into the poblanos now as I go to the stores, and you know, I've been here for what, 5 years, so.
Yeah.
You didn't see that much stuff, and I'm glad they're listening and watching our show.
Exactly.
And then when they go to the produce, they say, "Can we get this? Can you order that for us?" And I talked to the produce individual, and he says sometimes we come up with the ideas that people didn't know.
And in fact, Brookshire's produce guy is watching your show, our show, and
He's probably thinking, okay, what are we going to need next month?
That's
You
right.
know what
That's
I mean?
right.
I like that. So anyway, I got my onions, Tim.
Okay.
I got my hot oil.
All right.
Nice sizzling. I'm going to put it right here, okay? A little
Okay.
closer to me.
Okay.
I'm going to get that going. I'm going to add a little bit. I'm going to add the celery. What we're going to do is we're going to saute our vegetables real quick, okay?
Okay.
So we're just going to make them sweat. I got a little bit of celery here.
Now, you know, in Louisiana, they have a term for this mix that you're sauteing, and they call it, actually, I'm not sure if the poblano pepper is part of that, but have you ever heard it called the Holy Trinity?
The Holy Trinity. No,
Yeah.
until today.
Now, in Italy, they would call this Sofrito.
Sofrito.
Yeah, now you've heard that term.
Oh, well, yeah. And the Cubans use the same term,
Sofrito. Yeah.
So we're going to sweat this a little bit, okay?
Okay.
So I got the poblanos, I got the onions, and the celery, okay? And then we're going to add a little bit of garlic. This is one of those that I will add the garlic now, okay?
All right. Instead of later.
Instead of later, we're going to add this.
And that's because you're after a strong garlic flavor. You got a lot of meat in this.
Yes. So
it'll take it.
It'll take it, okay?
And then also, if you'll notice on our recipe, I think we've got, is it 4 cloves of garlic on that recipe?
4 cloves of garlic, yeah. So, okay, now let's,
Okay, okra.
Okra.
All right, so we actually just brought these to show you. Anytime you're growing okra, if you haven't learned this already, and it gets this big, it's really not edible. These pods get real woody and tough. And so you really want, the good okra is when it's small, before actually the pods are even mature.
Right.
A lot of people don't know that okra is a plant that was originally grown in Africa. It comes to us from Africa. And so okra likes a very hot, long summer. So it's why it's still going so good.
A lot of people like the flavor of it, they just don't like the texture of it.
Yes.
And that's because it's a little slimy.
Okay, now talk about that, because we were, you know, that's exactly what I hear from people all the time. They can't stand that slimy texture.
Yeah.
Now, what can you do to reduce the slime if you're boiling okra?
Well, if you're boiling okra, I've heard, I haven't done it because I haven't, normally we use it in sauces or stew them with tomatoes. Nothing better than stewed tomato with okra. But a little bit of white vinegar in the water, and then you cook them off. It breaks out that sliminess.
Now, you know what? That may be why. Now, here again, I haven't researched this, but the vinegar is an acid, and tomatoes have a little bit of acid. So maybe when we cook okra with tomatoes, maybe that's why it's not quite as slimy, huh?
Probably so, yeah. So that's what they told me. I made some, I asked them a few questions. I haven't had the urgency to even think about the sliminess. So
yeah.
But we're good. And then that's what they told me. Add a little bit, not much, okay? You don't want much of vinegar. Or maybe some citrus, some lemon juice.
There you go. So any acid then?
Any acid.
Okay.
Okay, now I am not going to add this yet. We're going to save this for the end. I just want to dice those up.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to put this back over here. Once this is sauteing, it's smelling good. Ingredients are a little oregano, a little bit of cayenne pepper. Okay, and when we're talking cayenne, we're talking pinch.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk about that as we add it because it gets too spicy. You don't want it too spicy. So you're going to add it, let it cook a minute, taste it, add a little bit more if you need to.
Now, you've taught us that you can always add more, but you can't take it out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it goes with a little gumbo filet, a little bit of paprika for color.
Yeah.
Again, pinch of salt and pepper if we need to, okay?
And you know, you've taught me about using fresh parsley. You know, I never really cooked much with parsley. I always thought it was something to decorate with. But that parsley adds a lot of good flavor.
Adds a lot, and it's good for you.
You want this chicken too? Or?
Yes, if you don't mind. I'm going to add the pork, Tim.
Okay.
I'm going to add the pork in here. We're going to saute this for a little bit.
And
then we're going to add the chicken.
And you know, this gumbo is a good example of a well-balanced meal. You hear dietitians or nutritionists say, we need to eat well-balanced meal. Well, a well-balanced meal is simply combining foods from different groups. So you've got a meat, a starch, and a vegetable. And so here you've got meat. The starch is going to, of course, be the rice, and it's a whole grain starch. And you've got your vegetable.
This is all in one.
So actually, this healthy gumbo really is a healthy dish.
Yes, it really is. And it's year-round.
And so far, I haven't seen you add any salt, but you're going to add a pinch of salt later.
We're going to add, because we're going to taste. Always remember, taste and then add. Don't add and then taste, because then we added too much.
Well, and here again, on your salt, and it's a basic rule that we've taught on the show many times, is a little can bring out the flavor, but too much covers up.
Ruin the flavor.
Yeah, it covers up everything.
Now, we can add the oregano.
Okay.
All right, as we sauteing it, so get the flavor there.
You know, I have fresh oregano in my, fresh oregano in my herb garden right now. Now this is your filet.
This is my filet. Okay, so we're going to add the filet right now.
It's a characteristic gumbo
It's got to have filet. Now, we add a little bit at a time because we're going to add a little more later for that flavor.
Let me smell that just while you're working there.
Smells good, doesn't it?
You know, I didn't know what filet was until I read the ingredients, and filet is ground sassafras. So you've heard of a sassafras tree. Well, this is the ground leaves of the sassafras plant.
And boy, it has
good.
a good flavor too. All right, so we're gonna let this cook a little bit. All right.
Yep.
Looking good?
It is looking wonderful and it's smelling incredible.
It does. It really does. Now what I want to do is add my broth, okay, Tim?
Okay.
A nice vegetable broth.
Okay, now you haven't added the shrimp. You've put in the 2 meats. But
Yeah, I want to save the shrimp last. Shrimp cooks quick.
Okay.
And I don't want my shrimp to be chewy.
Okay.
So what I like to do is that we're going to add our vegetable broth, okay, Tim?
Okay.
We're going to mix this, and then we're going to add the remaining of our ingredients, which is a little bit of the cayenne. Remember I told you we're going to add a pinch of cayenne, which I have right here.
Yeah.
And let me see. We're going to go like this.
Okay.
Boom. We can always add a little bit more later, okay?
Okay.
We're going to add our tomatoes.
That boom on the end was important.
Okay,
Yeah.
Excellent. Then we're going to add our tomatoes.
They teach you that in culinary school.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And we're going to add our tomatoes, okay? Tomatoes are good for you, so we're going to just put all these.
You bet.
All right, so we're going to mix this well.
People who eat tomatoes on a regular basis have a lower incidence of heart disease.
And that is true. That is true. I heard it in a lot of shows.
You heard it on Memorial Cooking Innovations.
That's it, Tim.
Yeah.
You told me.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Tim told me.
Yeah. So it has to be true.
It has to be true.
Okay, now you're adding
a little paprika. Paprika's a nice color, okay?
You know, I almost couldn't tell the difference in those two. You sure you got the right one?
Hey, let me give you a teaspoon of each, and you tell me which one, which one's which. How's that, Tim?
I'm not going to do that.
We're going to add a little pepper.
Okay.
Pepper is good for you.
Yeah, and you don't need too much because you've already added your...
Poblanos in there. It's got a nice little taste to it.
And your cayenne.
And your cayenne, so you really don't.
Did you get a pinch of salt yet?
Not yet, because I want to taste it first.
Okay, okay.
All right, so here's what we want to taste.
All right.
We want to, before we even add our roux, keep in mind that we haven't added our roux. Our roux has its own flavor.
Yeah.
All right, so what we want to do is taste everything else, okay, Tim?
So
remember I told you?
You're just checking to make sure that you've got everything balanced is what you're doing.
That's good.
All right. Now, you know me, I can't just taste this right out of the pot like you do.
Got a nice little flavor, right?
A lot of different
Got a little
flavors.
bite with the cayenne, so we don't need any more.
It's just right. Yeah, it's just right.
So, what I want to do
now,
before...
my relatives in Louisiana would probably say it needs a little more cayenne, but I like it.
I like it too. You can always add a little more.
Yeah, sure.
But it's better to add than take out because...
Well, and recipes are a guide. They're a guide.
And that's I'm glad you brought that up because a lot of recipes say a teaspoon of cayenne or a teaspoon of chipotle or a teaspoon of that. Add a little bit, taste it. It might not be what their taste is for, you know what I mean? So add a little bit of it, but you got the main ingredients. This is what goes in it. Just add a little bit at a time and then taste to see if that's what you like.
And a teaspoon of some of these spices like cayenne is a lot. Yeah.
That's like almost eating 3-4 peppers at one time, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're going to heat this, let this cook a little bit longer, okay? Bring it to a boil. Then we're going to add our shrimp and our okra.
Okay, and I wanted to point out, because we didn't mention, always use a low-sodium vegetable broth in a dish like this.
Or you can use the low-sodium chicken broth, too.
Either one.
Chicken's in this.
But the key on that is low-sodium, because if you use a regular chicken or chicken or vegetable broth, it will be so salty you can't eat it.
That is true.
Yeah.
And the whole purpose of this is to make it healthy. And enjoy the flavors without the salt.
You're in control of the salt.
I'm in control.
Doing it this
we
way.
are.
Yeah.
Now that it's boiling, kind of simmering very good, we're going to add our roux. Remember our roux?
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm just going to go ahead and add our roux a little bit at a time.
Well, that's what I was going to ask. So the purpose of the roux is to
thicken it up.
Okay.
And the flavor and the color. So you got all three things going for you.
Well, and so it's a flavor enhancer and a thickener. And so, sometimes when we add like a flour to a liquid, the recipe will always tell you to make sure you boil the liquid for 1 minute to cook the starch. But in this case,
already cooked the starch.
Yeah, the roux is already cooked,
there.
So you don't have to do that.
We don't have to do it all. So we're gonna. But you smell that roux? It smells so good, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So now it will start thickening up real good, okay?
And that that filet and the
flavors are there.
Browned flour. Now it's starting to smell like a gumbo. I remember that smell because when we'd go to see my relatives in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and anytime we'd go, Aunt Goldie would make gumbo. She'd have a pot of gumbo on the stove when we came in. And so that's what this smell takes me back to.
It's going to be some good.
Do you think maybe I should taste it just to make sure?
Be careful, it's hot though.
Yeah, because I don't want you to mislead us on this.
That's good. It's getting there, huh? So once we get it cooking, now we can go ahead and add our okra. How's that, Tim?
All right.
And then...
a lot of people, since you're adding the okra, let me just point this out. Kind of sticky.
Kind of sticky, yeah.
A lot of people overlook the health benefits of okra. Okra is high in fiber, which means that it lowers our cholesterol, and it also helps with weight management. It's high in vitamins A, actually not vitamin A, but beta-carotene, but it's high in vitamin C, the B vitamins, and it's high in vitamin K. Now, vitamin K is one of those things that if we're taking an anticoagulant medication like Coumadin, for example, okra is one of those foods you should limit, and it's because of the vitamin K content.
Now, the recipe calls for like 71, 90 shrimp.
Okay.
And very important to know why they call them like that. That's how many per pound.
Okay, so when you say 7190, that's
actually
a specification.
Well, yeah, that's
going to
actually
be written on the bag of shrimp.
Yeah, or you can ask what size shrimps they are.
Okay.
Any kind of shrimp, it's good for you. If you want to invest on the big, large jumbos, great. Yeah. If you want to do the little ones, great. One thing that I do want to emphasize is use raw ones. Yeah, okay. They sell you those salad shrimps and stuff like that. They're already cooked. You don't really want to throw them in there and kind of chewy.
Yeah, yeah.
And you want the flavor to be in the raw, and you want it in the shrimps. Yeah. So I got these here. Okay. All right, Tim? I just took the tail off. You can leave the tail on if you like. In Louisiana, they add crab. Yeah. I mean, they just, anything seafood, it's awesome.
That's right.
I guess for the Spaniard would be paella.
Paella.
And for the French, Louisianians, is that right?
That's close enough.
Close. Yeah. That would say gumbo.
Yeah.
All right?
Yeah.
Oh, and they got their jambalaya and everything else as well.
Well, I hadn't actually thought of gumbo being similar to paella, but it is, isn't it? Because
that seafood.
Yeah, they would do mixed meats with seafood and sausage with vegetables and then put that over rice.
Rice, okay. Yeah. And I'm glad you said over rice. Now, there's two ways of doing when they do gumbo, and we talked about this a while back, was I could actually cook my rice in there.
In the gumbo.
In the gumbo.
Yeah.
But that means I have to have more broth.
Because the rice is going to suck
It's going to suck it up. You know what I mean? As it cooks, it's going to suck up
so
more.
It's going to thicken your gumbo to be so
exactly. So it could be either too loose or too thick all of a sudden. So you don't want to. Me prefer cook it on the side, add it together. Cook it with a little bit of low sodium vegetable broth or chicken broth. Yeah. Just make sure it's low sodium. Yeah. 2 to 1 again. And then we're going to add it together as one, okay?
Well, and I'm glad you pointed that out because we've made brown rice before on the show, but it's a good point to mention that a low-sodium vegetable broth can be not only a soup base like we did here, but a base for cooking rice or
poaching fish. Just anything that's considered liquid that
instead of water, because what you've taught us is we're adding flavor. Instead of just adding water to the dish.
One thing that we did the other day was I cooked some pasta. Pasta is normally some water and a little bit of butter or oil. Yeah. And some people like to and some people don't. I like to add a little bit of it just because as the noodles goes in, it coats it in so it doesn't stick. Make sure you stir it. Yeah. But the other day, because of you, I added vegetable broth.
To the pasta.
So when I pulled the pasta out, it had a nice little flavor.
That's
so think
a good
about
idea.
that. Yeah.
I hadn't thought about it.
All because of you. I think we got it. We're ready to roll.
It's beautiful and it smells wonderful. I wish you could smell this.
Smell TV.
Can you smell it?
But you can imagine it.
I can.
You can imagine it. So
okay, so
we're
you
ready.
want
So
rice?
here's what I want. I like to put the rice in the middle.
Yeah.
All right. And don't put too much rice because you can always add more. Remember, always add, but you can't take out.
Now that's actually a personal preference because with me.
Well, no, but you can add more rice to it.
Okay.
But you're true. You are the ones. You're the rice guy.
Yeah, I like a little gumbo on a lot of rice.
And that's okay, and that's good too. But this is just.
Look at the color in this dish. It's beautiful.
Perfect. Guess what, Tim? That's going to be yours.
And now you want just a little bit of rice on top, just like right here, huh?
Yeah, and touch it and finish it off with a little parsley. How's that?
There you go. There it is.
All right.
Perfect.
Got you a nice spoon.
Okay.
All right, Tim.
All right. Well, while you finish, while you let this finish cooking, I just wanted to summarize a few things. You know, you can make just about any recipe healthy if you work at it. In this example, we took out the sausage and
the fat and all that, you know, clogging, vessel clogging
artery
stuff.
Clogging fat.
Yeah, but we still keep the traditional. We still kept the flavors. We still, I mean, everything else is in there.
We used a low sodium broth and added a pinch of salt. But, you know, this isn't real salty, but it tastes good.
But it tastes good because the salt is last. Always use salt last. Taste it as you go. Remember, taste as you go.
Well, and you taught us today how to make a roux. And so that's kind of a neat thing, a basic roux. And also we learned about the health benefits of brown rice. And there are a lot of reasons to choose brown rice over white. And let's see. Also, you gave us a recipe today. When we've got too much gumbo, here's a good way to use it.
Yeah.
So we'd like to thank our sponsors of Brookshire Brothers. They're a celebration of food and family. And we want to say thanks to Sodexo for Chef Manny Marini. And thanks to the Polk Education Center working hard to help people to control their diabetes. And of course we want to say thanks to you, our viewers. We hear a lot of good comments from you all, and we appreciate those comments very much. It just makes our day whenever someone...
It does. And a special thanks to City of Lufkin.
That's right. City of Lufkin, who produces and distributes Memorial Cooking Innovations. So with that, we're going to say goodbye because we've got some gumbo we want to eat. And after we eat this gumbo, or maybe while we're eating it, can we change the world?
One bite at a time.